I knew something was wrong the moment he wouldn't look at me. The bond felt tight and strained. But he had already decided. In front of the entire pack. My alpha snapped our mate bond. And the worst part? I felt it tear. But it didn't die. Chapter 1. The ceremony I shouldn't have attended. Leora knew something was wrong long before the ceremony began. It wasn't a rumor. It wasn't a whisper. It was the silence. For 3 days Alpha Kael had not sought her out. Not for council discussion. Not for patrol updates. Not even through the mate bond that once hummed softly beneath her skin. The bond had felt strained. Not broken. Just tight. Like something pulling in the wrong direction. When the pack was summoned to the central clearing, she already understood it wasn't going to be what she once imagined. This wasn't a claiming ceremony. It was something else. Still, she dressed in silver. Not because she was certain, but because she refused to appear uncertain. The clearing was crowded when she arrived. Torches burned along the perimeter. Elders stood at the front. Warriors lined the outer ring. And at the center, Kael. Tall, composed and unreadable. His eyes found hers the moment she stepped forward. For a second, just one. Something flickered. Regret. Then it was gone. The bond tightened painfully in her chest. She stopped walking. She didn't stand beside him. She stood across from him. That was the first confirmation. Elder Varen stepped forward. Tonight, Alpha Kael addresses the pack regarding succession and alliance. Alliance. The words spread like cold water down her spine. Kael's voice carried easily. Stormridge territory requires strength. He didn't look at her again. Our borders weaken without strategic reinforcement. A woman stepped forward from the council line. Elena of the North Cliffs. High-ranking. Politically valuable. Leora felt the mate bond twist sharply. This wasn't hesitation. This was decision. Kael continued. For the protection of Stormridge, I have chosen alliance over sentiment. The words were precise. Calculated and cold. The pack murmured. Leora's wolf stirred violently inside her. Not in rage. In disbelief. He stepped closer. Not toward her. Toward Elena. And that was when she understood fully. He wasn't going to reject her quietly. He was going to end it publicly. Elder Varen raised his staff. The mate bond between Alpha Kael and Leora of Stormridge will be dissolved. Gasps rippled through the clearing. True mate bonds were not lightly severed. They were sacred, rare, powerful. And dangerous to tamper with. Kael finally looked at her again. This time there was no regret in his eyes. Only resolve. I release you, he said evenly. The words struck like a physical blow. Leora didn't move. Didn't beg. Didn't speak. But inside her chest, something cracked. The ritual began. Energy gathered between them. The bond that once felt warm and steady now burned like ice. She felt it tear. Not cleanly. Not gently. Like fabric ripping under strain. Pain shot through her spine. Her knees threatened to buckle. But she remained standing. She would not collapse in front of them. The clearing filled with charged silence. The final words of severance were spoken. And then silence. The bond went quiet. Not gone. Just quiet. The pack exhaled collectively. Elena stepped beside Kael, claiming her place. Leora felt the absence like a missing limb. But she did not cry. He did not scream. She did not reach for him. Instead she lifted her chin slightly. And met his gaze one last time. If he expected devastation, he would not see it. I accept, she said calmly. The words shocked even her. Because she didn't accept the decision. He accepted the truth. He had chosen power over her. And now he would learn what that cost. She turned. Walked through the parted crowd. Each step steady. Each breath controlled. The night air felt colder beyond the clearing. Behind her, applause began hesitantly. Alliance secured. Bond severed. Stormridge strengthened. But as she reached the edge of the forest, her wolf stirred again. Not broken. Not dead. Just waiting. And somewhere in the clearing, Kael's chest tightened suddenly, sharp, unexpected and brief. He ignored it. Because the bond was gone. Chapter 2. The pain that didn't leave. Leora did not run. She did not shift. She walked until the sounds of celebration faded behind her and the forest swallowed the torchlight whole. Only then did she allow herself to stop. The mate bond should have vanished. That was how severance rituals worked. Clean, final, and irreversible. But as she pressed her palm against her chest, she felt it. Not warmth. Not connection. But pressure. Like a scar that hadn't healed properly. Her wolf stirred uneasily. It is not gone, the instinct whispered. Leora leaned against the trunk of an ancient oak and closed her eyes. The ritual had torn something. But it hadn't erased it. That was dangerous. Because incomplete severance carried consequences. For both sides. Back in the clearing, Kael stood beside Elena as elders congratulated him. Stormridge stands secure, Elder Varen declared. Warriors bowed their heads. Elena placed her hand lightly on Kael's arm. You did what was necessary, she said quietly. Necessary. The word echoed. Kael nodded once. Yes. But beneath his composure something felt off. His wolf did not respond to Elena's proximity. There was no pull. No shift in scent recognition. No spark. Instead there was a faint, dull ache beneath his ribs. He ignored it. The ritual had been completed. The bond was dissolved. There should be nothing left. And yet, when Leora stepped beyond the clearing earlier, something in his chest had tightened sharply and brief. But real. He inhaled slowly. Forced his wolf into stillness. The pack must not see hesitation. Later that night he attempted to shift. It had always been effortless. A command and a release. Tonight the transformation stalled midway. His bones resisted. His vision blurred. Pain shot across his spine before settling abruptly. He remained half-shifted for several seconds before forcing himself back to human form. Breathing harder than he expected. Alone in his chambers, Kael stared at his reflection. That had never happened before. At the forest's edge, Leora knelt beside the river. Moonlight shimmered across the water's surface. She stared at her reflection. She expected emptiness. Instead she saw strength. The bond no longer hummed warmly. But neither had her wolf retreated. It was alert and sharpened. As if something had been stripped away. Not love. Not connection. But dependency. She inhaled deeply. And shifted. The transformation came instantly. Fluid and powerful. No resistance. Her white wolf stood tall beneath the moonlight. Stronger than it had ever felt. The severed bond did not weaken her. It clarified her. She ran. Through trees. Across stone. Over the ridge. Her movements were precise. Controlled and alive. For the first time in days her chest did not ache. It burned with something else. Resolve. The following morning whispers began spreading through Stormridge. The Alpha struggled during patrol. He cut training short. He looks pale. Elena noticed too. You seem tired, she said during council assembly. I am not. But he was. His senses dulled slightly at the edges. His wolf remained restless. And beneath the dull ache, there was something worse. Absence. The silence of a bond that had once steadied him. He had expected relief. Instead he felt imbalance. Elder Varen approached him privately. True mate bonds do not sever easily. It was completed, Kael replied sharply. Yes. But completion does not always mean harmony. Kael's jaw tightened. Explain. The elder lowered his voice. When a true bond is forced apart under political ritual rather than mutual rejection, it can destabilize one side. One side. Kael repeated. Yes. The side that initiated the break. The implication hung heavily between them. That is superstition, Kael said. Is it? Kael did not respond. Because last night's failed shift echoed louder than pride. Leora did not return to Stormridge that day. She climbed higher into the northern ridges. Territory rarely patrolled. Her wolf paused at the summit. Below, Stormridge stretched strong and proud. He did not hate it. He did not hate him. But she understood something now. He had believed power required sacrifice. He just hadn't realized. He was the one who would bleed. She shifted back to human form as dawn broke fully. The ache in her chest remained faint. But steady. Not gone. And that frightened her more than the pain. Because if the bond was not fully severed, it could pull again. And she would not allow herself to be dragged back without choice. Behind her, far below in Stormridge territory, Kael pressed his hand against his chest again as a sudden sharp pulse flared beneath his ribs. Stronger this time. Lingering. He inhaled sharply. The bond was gone. Wasn't it? Chapter 3. The fracture deepens. Stormridge noticed before Kael admitted it. Alphas did not hesitate during patrol briefings. They did not lose focus mid-sentence. They did not cut combat demonstrations short because their wolf refused full shift. Yet by the third day after the severance ritual, the pack had begun to whisper. Kael stood in the training grounds facing 3 senior warriors. Normally, he would shift effortlessly and dominate the demonstration. Today, when he called his wolf forward, it resisted. Not fully, just enough to falter. His claws extended slowly. His spine stiffened. The transformation dragged like something pulling backward. A flicker of pain crossed his face before he masked it. He forced the shift through sheer will. But it was not clean. Not fluid. The warriors pretended not to notice. They failed. He saw it in their eyes. Concern. And something worse. Doubt. After dismissing them, he walked alone to the cliffs overlooking the territory. The wind usually calmed his wolf. Today it only sharpened the hollow ache beneath his ribs. The bond should have vanished completely. Instead it felt like a scar that throbbed when he inhaled too deeply. He pressed his hand to his chest again. The pain pulsed brief but sharp. As if something far away had moved. In the northern ridges, Leora paused mid-step. Her wolf froze. There. That pulse again. Faint but real. The severed bond flickered like an ember beneath ash. She exhaled slowly. He's feeling it too, she murmured. Not hope. Not longing. Recognition. The ritual had not erased the connection. It had wounded it. True mate bonds were not ropes to be cut. They were woven. And woven things did not separate cleanly under force. She shifted and ran again, forcing distance. Because every time that pulse flickered, it threatened to remind her of what once was. And she would not weaken. Back at Stormridge, Elder Varen requested a private council session. Only elders. No warriors. No political advisors. Kael stood at the head of the chamber, controlled but strained. The ritual destabilized you, Varen said plainly. It was completed, Kael replied. Yes. But you initiated it under strategic pressure. And the mate bond did not reject you. The room went still. Another elder spoke carefully. True bonds sever cleanly only when both wolves withdraw. Kael's jaw tightened. She accepted. She endured, Varen corrected. The distinction was sharp. She did not reject you. Silence filled the chamber. Kael did not like the direction this conversation was moving. What are you implying? That your wolf did not consent to the severance. The words struck harder than any accusation. Consent. He had spoken the ritual words. He had invoked the break. He had believed leadership required sacrifice. But he had not asked his wolf. And he had not asked hers. Is this permanent? He asked. It can become permanent, Varen answered. If imbalance continues. And if it does? You weaken. Not metaphorically. Not politically. Spiritually. An alpha's strength was not only physical. It was spiritual alignment. And misaligned alphas did not rule long. Elena entered the chamber later that evening. You're being watched, she said quietly. I am aware. The pack senses instability. There is none. She stepped closer. There is. Her honesty irritated him. You secured the alliance, she continued. But if your authority appears fractured, we gain nothing. My authority is intact. Is it? He was not challenging him. He was observing. And that unsettled him more. That night he attempted to shift again. This time the pain struck harder. Mid-transformation his vision darkened. His wolf roared internally, not in dominance but in confusion. He dropped to one knee before forcing himself back. Breathing hard. Sweat cold against his skin. The bond pulsed again. Stronger and lingering. And this time, carried something else. Not pain. Not weakness. Distance. She was moving farther away. And his wolf reacted like something was being torn slowly rather than severed quickly. For the first time since the ceremony, doubt crept in. Had he miscalculated? High above the territory, Leora stood at the northern border. Another pack scent lingered faintly beyond the ridge. Stronger, organized and disciplined. She inhaled slowly. Stormridge was not the only territory in these mountains. Her wolf did not shy from the unfamiliar scent. It stood taller. The fractured bond pulsed once more beneath her ribs. Weaker. As if stretching thin. She pressed her palm against her chest. I won't be pulled back by pain, she whispered. The wind shifted, carrying with it the scent of another alpha. Not close, but aware. And far below in Stormridge. Kael staggered slightly as the pulse flared again. This time sharp enough to steal his breath. His wolf growled internally. Not at her but at him. Chapter 4. The Awakening. By the fifth night the pain inside Leora no longer felt like loss. It felt like space. The mate bond had once filled her senses constantly. A steady warmth beneath her skin, a second heartbeat beneath her ribs. Now that warmth was gone. But something else had taken its place. Clarity. She stood at the northern summit beneath a silver moon, wind tearing through her hair. The fractured pulse in her chest flickered faintly again. Distant and weaker. Not dead. But no longer anchoring her. Her wolf lifted its head and howled. Not mournfully. Not broken but strong. The sound rolled across the mountains. And something answered. Not a howl. Not a challenge. A presence. From beyond Stormridge borders. Her wolf did not recoil. It stepped forward. For the first time since the ceremony, Leora understood something that unsettled her more than the pain ever had. The bond had not been her strength. It had been shared strength. And now her power was entirely her own. She shifted. The transformation was instant. Clean and effortless. Her white wolf landed lightly against stone, muscles coiled with precision. Stronger than she remembered. Faster and sharper. The severed bond had stripped distraction. She ran across the ridge. Every movement controlled. Every breath steady. There was no drag. No hesitation. No spiritual fracture. Her wolf was whole. Far below Kael was not. He stood in the war chamber as scouts delivered border reports. A minor incursion had occurred along the southern forest. Nothing catastrophic. Normally he would respond immediately. Today his vision flickered mid-briefing. The ache beneath his ribs flared sharply. His hand tightened against the map table. Alpha? Marcus asked quietly. I am fine. But he wasn't. His wolf felt muted. Not absent. Muted. As if something had dampened its reach. He dismissed the scouts and stepped outside into the open air. He tried again to shift. The change came, but slower and heavier. His claws extended unevenly. His balance faltered before correcting. The warriors nearby pretended not to notice again. But he saw the flicker. Alphas were not meant to struggle. Stormridge needed dominance. And dominance did not hesitate. He forced the shift back. His chest burned. Not exhaustion. Misalignment. And beneath it, the faintest whisper of her presence. Far away, but steady and Ave. His wolf surged toward it instinctively. He shut it down. That connection was severed. It meant nothing. Didn't it? That night, Elder Varen approached him again. You feel it, the elder said quietly. Kael did not deny it this time. The bond did not collapse on her side, Varen continued. What does that mean? It means she did not weaken. Kael's jaw tightened. And I did. You initiated rupture without mutual spiritual withdrawal. Speak plainly. Varen met his gaze. You tried to break something sacred by force. Silence. The wind carried the distant scent of rain. True mate bonds amplify strength when aligned, the elder continued. But when torn unevenly, imbalance transfers. To me, Kael said flatly. Yes. And her. She carries the clarity. That word again. Clarity. Kael inhaled slowly. And what restores balance? Varen did not answer immediately. Reconciliation. The word landed heavily. Kael's expression hardened. I will not crawl. Then you will weaken. The simplicity of it unsettled him more than accusation. In the northern territory, Leora sensed watchers. Not hostile but curious. A patrol from the neighboring Blackstone pack had noticed her movements. She did not hide. She did not challenge. She simply stood at the ridge, unafraid. A tall dark wolf stepped into view across the borderline. Dominant stance. Measured breath. Another alpha. He did not cross. He simply observed. Her wolf held eye contact. Unshaken, unclaimed and free. For several long seconds neither moved. Then the Blackstone alpha dipped his head slightly. Not submission. Acknowledgement. And withdrew. Leora exhaled slowly. Stormridge had once defined her position. Now she defined herself. The fractured bond pulsed faintly again. Weaker this time. As if distance was stretching it thin. She pressed her palm against her chest. I am not broken, she whispered. Her wolf answered with steady strength. Back in Stormridge, Kael felt that same pulse. This time it did not carry pain. Carried something worse. Absence. She was moving beyond his reach. And his wolf reacted violently to the realization. A sharp, piercing surge ripped through his chest. He staggered against the stone wall. Marcus caught his arm. Alpha. Kael straightened immediately. I am fine. But for the first time since the ceremony. He wasn't certain. Chapter 5. The truth revealed. Stormridge had survived wars. It had survived famine. It had survived rival alphas and border raids. But it had never survived a weakened alpha. And the pack was beginning to feel it. Not openly. Not rebelliously. But instinctively. Wolves were creatures of balance. They sensed spiritual instability before they saw physical decline. Training sessions shortened. Patrol rotations grew cautious. The air in the territory felt tense. Not because of enemies. Because of uncertainty. Kael felt it too. He stood in the council chamber, shoulders squared, as Elder Varen and the remaining elders closed the heavy oak doors. No guards. No advisors. No Elena. Only truth. You cannot continue like this, Varen said calmly. I am capable of leading, Kael replied. For now. The words landed sharply. Kael did not react. But his wolf stirred uneasily. You believe the bond was severed, Varen continued. It was not. It was ritualized. Yes. But ritual does not override instinct. Another elder spoke quietly. She did not reject you. Kael's jaw tightened. She accepted. She endured. Again the distinction. It echoed louder this time. Explain the difference, Kael said. When a mate bond is mutually dissolved, both wolves withdraw. The connection fades evenly. And this was not even. No. Kael inhaled slowly. Then what is it? Varen stepped closer. You ruptured a living bond. The chamber fell silent. Ruptured. Not dissolved. Ruptured. When a true mate bond is forced apart without spiritual alignment, Varen continued, the initiating alpha absorbs imbalance. And her. She carries release. That word struck deeper than expected. Release. Not freedom from love. Freedom from reliance. Kael felt the pulse beneath his ribs again. Sharp and lingering. What happens if it remains this way? He asked. You weaken. For how long? Until balance is restored. And if it is not? Varen did not hesitate. Stormridge will feel it. Territory follows alpha strength. Spiritual fracture spreads. The implication was clear. His pride was no longer personal. It was political. Reconciliation, Kael said quietly. Yes. Is that the only path? For true mates? Yes. Silence thickened. Kael had chosen alliance for power. Now power demanded humility. Across the mountains, Leora sat at the edge of the Blackstone border. She had not crossed into their territory. But she had not retreated either. The air felt different here. Sharper and cleaner. Her wolf rested calmly beneath her skin. She no longer felt the drag of shared instinct. The fractured pulse in her chest had dulled to a faint echo. Distance had weakened its grip. And with that distance came something unexpected. Peace. 4 days she had expected anger and resentment. But what remained instead was clarity. Kael had not chosen cruelty. He had chosen control. And in doing so he had tried to control something sacred. She had loved him deeply. But she would not crawl back to restore what he broke. If he wanted balance, he would have to confront what imbalance meant. Back in Stormridge, Elena stood outside the council chamber after the elders dismissed themselves. You're losing them, she said quietly as Kael exited. I am not. You are. Her honesty irritated him. The warriors whisper. They will not challenge. Not yet. She stepped closer. You secured alliance with me. But if your wolf continues to falter, that alliance becomes irrelevant. My wolf will not falter. But even as he spoke, a sharp pulse flared again beneath his ribs stronger. Elena noticed the slight flinch. You still feel her, she said. He did not respond. You may have severed the bond ritual, she continued, but you did not sever instinct. That instinct will fade. Will it? She studied him carefully. You look thinner. The observation was subtle but true. The fracture was draining him. Not dramatically, but gradually, like something siphoning strength through an invisible crack. Kael dismissed her and returned to his private chambers. He stood before the mirror once more. His eyes looked sharper and harsher. But beneath that, there was fatigue. Not physical exhaustion. Spiritual misalignment. He pressed his palm against his chest again. The pulse answered. Faint, distant but alive. He was not suffering. She was not collapsing. If anything, she was growing stronger. That realization unsettled him more than the pain. Because imbalance meant one side had lost more than the other. And he was beginning to understand. He had not freed himself. He had weakened himself. High above, Leora felt a sudden sharp tug. Not painful. Not desperate. But different. It wasn't the pulse of shared connection. It felt like awareness. As if he had finally understood something. Her wolf lifted its head calmly. Not longing. Not afraid. Just aware. If he came for her, it would not be to reclaim ownership. It would be to restore balance. And restoration required humility. She stood. The mountains stretched wide before her. She did not belong to Stormridge anymore. But she was not lost. For the first time in her life, her strength did not come from standing beside an alpha. It came from standing alone. Chapter 6. The Hunt. Kael did not announce his departure. He did not inform the council. He did not seek permission from elders or alliance partners. At dawn, he shifted and crossed Stormridge's northern boundary alone. If this was weakness, he would confront it himself. The air beyond his territory felt unfamiliar. Thinner and less obedient. His wolf moved cautiously at first. Not out of fear. Out of imbalance. The farther he traveled from Stormridge, the sharper the pulse beneath his ribs became. It wasn't pain now. It was direction. The fractured bond, though severed in ritual, still carried trace alignment. She was north. High elevation. Moving frequently. He followed. Not as a conqueror. Not as an alpha issuing recall. But as a male whose miscalculation was catching up with him. 3 days earlier he would have told himself this was unnecessary. That pride would hold the line. Now every failed shift. Every moment of dull instinct. Every whisper in the pack. Echoed louder than pride. By midday the terrain grew steeper. The scent changed. Another territory lay ahead. Blackstone. Kael slowed. Crossing into another alpha's land without notice was challenge. But he did not come to challenge. He came to restore. His wolf pressed forward. The pulse strengthened close. On the ridge above Blackstone's border, Leora paused. He felt him. Not emotionally. Not nostalgically. Instinctively. The fractured bond tugged with sudden clarity. He had crossed territory. Her wolf did not panic. It did not yearn. It prepared. She shifted and stood tall on the stone ridge, silver hair whipping in mountain wind. She would not hide. If he came, he would meet her standing. Kael saw her before she saw him. She stood at the highest point of the ridge. Back straight. Unbowed. Stronger than he remembered. The sight struck harder than the pain in his chest. She was not diminished. She was not grieving. Steady. He shifted back to human form before approaching. Not as alpha but as himself. When he stepped into clear view, she did not step back. She did not soften. You crossed into Blackstone territory, she said evenly. I know. They will not tolerate provocation. I am not here to provoke. Silence hung between them. Wind filled the space where the bond once hummed. He felt it immediately. The difference. The absence of warmth. But not the absence of awareness. You look stronger, he said quietly. I am. The honesty unsettled him. I did what I believed was necessary. And now? He hesitated. For the first time since the ceremony, he did not have a prepared answer. I miscalculated. Her expression did not change. You ruptured something sacred. Yes. You chose alliance. Yes. You chose publicly. Yes. Each admission cost him something, but not as much as the imbalance already had. The bond did not sever cleanly, he said finally. I know. You feel it. Yes. The quiet exchange felt heavier than argument. Blackstone patrol wolves watched from a distance. Not interfering, but aware. You came to restore it, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes. And if I refuse? The pulse beneath his ribs flared sharply. He swallowed it. Then Stormridge weakens. And you? I weaken. There was truth without dominance, without command, without threat. The mountain wind howled between them. She stepped closer. Not intimately, not warmly, but close enough that the fractured bond vibrated faintly. You didn't just weaken yourself, she said quietly. You destabilized your pack. I know. You destabilized me. Silence. He did not defend himself. Because there was no defense. You believed you could control sacred instinct through ritual, she continued. Yes. And now you want forgiveness because it hurts. No. Then why? He met her gaze fully. Because I was wrong. The words did not echo. They settled heavy and unadorned. Her wolf stirred. Not softened. Just attentive. You cannot restore what was broken without humility, she said. I understand. Do you? He inhaled slowly. What do you require? The question shifted the ground between them. Not demand. Not reclaim. Request. She studied him carefully. The alpha who once stood tall in ceremony now stood exposed beneath open sky. Stormridge did not see this. The council did not see this. Only her. I require truth, she said. I have given it. Not about alliance. He stiffened slightly. About fear. Silence. Wind roared louder. You feared instability, she said quietly. Yes. You feared appearing weak. Yes. So you chose control over connection. He did not argue. But she was correct. The fractured bond pulsed again. Not painfully. Almost awaiting. She stepped back. This does not restore itself because you arrived, she said. I know. It restores when imbalance is acknowledged publicly. His jaw tightened slightly. In front of Stormridge. The words landed with finality. Not private reconciliation. Not quiet correction. Public humility. The same place he broke it. He understood the cost immediately. The alpha who never bowed would have to kneel. The mountain wind carried his silence away. I will do it, he said. And for the first time since the ceremony, the pulse beneath his ribs steadied. Chapter 7. Third turn. Stormridge gathered again under torchlight. Not for alliance. Not for celebration. For uncertainty. Rumors had traveled faster than Kael. The alpha had left territory alone. He had crossed borders. He had returned quieter than before. And now he had called another assembly. Leora stood at the edge of the clearing. Not hidden. Not beside him. Waiting. Kael stepped forward. There was no elder announcement this time. No ceremonial framing. Just him and the pack. Stormridge, he began. His voice carried clearly. But it lacked its usual edge of command. I made a decision before you weeks ago. Silence settled immediately. He did not look at Elena. He did not look at the council. He looked only at the pack. I severed a mate bond in the name of strength. Murmurs rippled. The elders remained still. It was not strength. The words fell heavy. It was fear. That word changed everything. Alphas did not admit fear. They commanded through it. Controlled through it. But they did not confess it. Kael inhaled slowly. I believed alliance required sacrifice. He turned then. Toward Leora. Forcing sacred instinct to bend to political control was my failure. The clearing felt breathless. Leora did not move. She did not rush forward. She simply stood. He stepped down from the platform. Not because he had to, but because he chose to. He walked across the clearing. Every step visible. Every movement watched. And when he reached her, he lowered himself, one knee to the ground. The clearing erupted in stunned silence. Stormridge had never seen their alpha kneel. Not to rival. Not to counsel. Not to mate. His voice remained steady. I ruptured what I did not fully understand. He lifted his gaze to hers. I severed without consent. The honesty rippled outward like a shockwave. I destabilized Stormridge. He did not whisper it. He declared it. I destabilized you. Leora's chest tightened. Not with triumph. With weight. This pack deserves alignment. He lowered his head slightly. And you deserved respect. The silence deepened further. Even the torches seemed to burn quieter. I asked, not command, for restoration. The word carried more power than any ritual phrase. The fractured bond pulsed faintly between them. Not pulling. Not forcing. Waiting. Leora stepped forward slowly. She did not reach for him. She did not soften immediately. You broke it publicly, she said evenly. Yes. You must understand what that cost. I do. You weakened your pack. Yes. You weakened yourself. Yes. And you weakened me. His jaw tightened slightly. Yes. She studied him carefully. The alpha who once chose control now knelt in surrender. Not of authority. Of pride. Stormridge watched. Elena stood rigid at the edge of the crowd. The elders observed in silence. You chose fear over faith, Leora continued. Yes. And now you ask me to restore what you fractured. Yes. She inhaled slowly. The fractured bond vibrated faintly. Her wolf stirred. Not wounded. Not desperate. But considering. If I restore it, she said quietly, it will not be as it was. I understand. It will be equal. Yes. No decisions without alignment. Yes. No ritual without consent. Yes. She stepped closer. The pulse strengthened. Not painfully. Harmonizing. This restoration does not erase what you did. I know. It proves you learned. Silence hung suspended. Then she reached forward. Not tenderly. Not romantically. Deliberately. Her palm pressed against his chest. Over the fracture point. He inhaled sharply. The connection flared. Not violently. Not painfully. Warm and balanced. Her wolf stepped forward inside her. His answered. The fractured edges fused slowly. Not snapping back. Not rushing. Reweaving. The pack felt it. A ripple of alignment across territory. Stormridge exhaled as one. Kael bowed his head once more. Not in weakness. In gratitude. When he stood, he did not step ahead of her. He stood beside her. For the first time. Equal footing. The torches burned brighter. The air felt steadier. The territory aligned. But something had changed permanently. The bond no longer hummed with unconscious comfort. It pulsed with conscious choice. And that was stronger. Chapter 8. The Bond Chosen. Stormridge felt different the morning after the restoration. Not louder. Not celebratory. Steadier. The air carried alignment again, that subtle current only wolves truly sensed. Patrol routes resumed without hesitation. Training grounds filled without tension. The territory exhaled. But the bond between Leora and Kael did not return to what it had been before. It became something else. Leora stood on the balcony overlooking the clearing at dawn. The mountains glowed silver under first light. Weeks ago she had stood in that same clearing as something sacred was torn apart in front of everyone. Now she stood above it, not elevated in dominance but in perspective. She felt the bond beneath her ribs. Warm, balanced and quiet. It did not overpower her instincts anymore. It aligned with them. Footsteps approached behind her. Kael did not speak immediately. He joined her at the railing. Not touching. Not claiming space. Simply present. I do not expect it to feel the same, he said quietly. It shouldn't, she replied. Silence settled between them. Not strained. Just honest. You were never my weakness, he continued. I mistook connection for vulnerability. She glanced at him. And you mistook control for strength. Yes. He did not defend himself. He no longer needed to. The lesson had carved itself deeply enough. Below, warriors began morning drills. The pack moved with renewed certainty. Stormridge felt anchored again. Not because an alpha commanded it. Because balance had been restored. "I won't make decisions alone again," Kael said. "I won't stay silent again," Leora replied. That was the new foundation. Not dominance. Not dependency. Alignment. Later that day the council assembled once more. This time Leora stood beside Kael by choice. Not as ornament. Not as symbol. As equal voice. Elder Varen observed them carefully. "The territory feels stable," he noted. "It is," Kael replied. Leora met the elder's gaze steadily. "Stormridge will not trade sacred bonds for political gain again." It was not accusation. It was precedent. The elders nodded. The message was clear. Leadership had shifted, not in title but in structure. Elena stepped forward at the edge of the chamber. Her expression was composed. "The alliance with the North Cliffs remains intact through trade routes," she said. "But I will withdraw from succession discussions." It was not dramatic. Not resentful. Just final. Kael inclined his head slightly in acknowledgement. Stormridge did not fracture. It adjusted. That evening Leora returned to the northern ridge alone. Not to escape. To confirm. The wind met her gently. Her wolf stirred. Calm and whole. The restored bond pulsed softly and balanced. She closed her eyes and shifted. Her white wolf stepped into moonlight once more. Strong, independent and aligned. This time when the pulse flared it did not feel like dependence. It felt like choice. Kael joined her at the ridge moments later, shifting beside her. Their wolves stood shoulder to shoulder. Not entangled. Not overwhelming. Present. He did not press against her. He did not assert dominance. He simply stood. Wind moved through their fur. The mountains stretched endless and steady before them. He had broken the bond. He had knelt to restore it. But what existed now was not the same bond that once hummed unconsciously between them. This one was stronger. Because it had been tested. And chosen. When they shifted back to human form, Leora looked at him quietly. "You don't own this bond," she said. "No. We maintain it." "Yes. And if you ever forget that?" He met her gaze steadily. "I will remember the cost." That was enough. They walked back towards Stormridge together. Not because tradition demanded it. Not because territory required it. But because both of them chose it. And this time, no ritual forced it. No fear controlled it. No pride overshadowed it. The bond remained. Not snapped. Not scarred but rewoven by choice. The night Stormridge changed. Stormridge never spoke of the night their alpha knelt as a scandal. They spoke of it as a turning point. The younger wolves whispered about it at first. Disbelief woven with awe. The older warriors did not whisper at all. They watched more closely. Because something subtle had shifted in the territory. Not authority. Not rank. Balance. For years Stormridge had been strong because Kael was decisive. But decisiveness had once crossed into control. And control had nearly fractured something sacred. After the public restoration the pack noticed small changes. Council meetings grew longer. Not from hesitation but from consultation. Patrol expansions were discussed with strategy leaders instead of declared unilaterally. Sacred rituals were spoken of with care. Kael still led. But he no longer led alone. And that difference reshaped the territory more than any alliance ever could. Leora did not become softer after the bond was restored. She became clearer. She no longer waited to be included in decisions that affected the pack's spiritual core. If something required her voice, she gave it. If something overstepped sacred law, she corrected it. Not sharply. Not emotionally. But firmly. And the pack adjusted quickly. Because strength did not diminish when shared. It stabilized. The wolves felt it in their instincts. The territory felt anchored again. Not by dominance. By alignment. There were still moments when the bond between them pulsed with memory. Not pain. Memory. Like a scar beneath skin that only aches when the weather changes. Sometimes at night, Kael would stand at the edge of the northern ridge. The same ridge where she had once stood alone. He did not go there to reclaim power. He went there to remember the cost of pride. The wind would move through the mountains and the bond between them would hum gently. Not demanding. Not binding. Present. Leora would join him sometimes. Not because she needed reassurance, but because she understood that leadership, like love, required maintenance. They did not speak of that night often. They did not relive it. But they did not erase it either. Because forgetting the fracture would invite another. Months later, when younger wolves formed bonds of their own, the elders began teaching differently. They told the story not as drama, but as warning. Sacred bonds are not tools. They are not leverage. They are not sacrifices for optics. They are chosen every day. Stormridge became known beyond its borders not only for strength, but for balance. And balance made it unshakable. One evening, long after the whispers had faded, Leora stood once more in the clearing where the rupture had first happened. Torches burned calmly. The air was steady. She closed her eyes and felt the bond. Warm even and conscious. It no longer hummed with unconscious fate. It pulsed with agreement. Kael stepped beside her quietly. He did not reach for her. He did not assume closeness. He waited. He turned to him. "You understand now," she said softly. "Yes. That strength without humility fractures. Yes. And that love without respect cannot survive. Yes." She studied him for a long moment. Then finally she took his hand. Not because destiny required it. Not because ritual demanded it. But because she wanted to. The bond responded gently. No surge and no flare. Just steady warmth. Stormridge slept peacefully that night. Not because their alpha was feared. Not because their Luna was fated. But because both had learned the same truth. Sacred things are not controlled. They are honored. And once honored, they endure. He thought strength meant control. I learned strength meant standing alone. The bond didn't survive because he broke it. It survived because we chose it. And this time, it wasn't sacred because it was fated. It was sacred because it was earned. Reflective monologue. What we almost lost. But Stormridge did not change in a single night. And neither did we. Change does not happen when pride shatters something sacred. It happens when someone chooses to look at the damage without turning away. When he snapped our bond, I felt the fracture before the silence. It wasn't just pain. It was disorientation. The kind that makes you question whether what you felt before was ever real. For a moment, I wondered if fate had been an illusion. If sacred instinct could truly be dismissed with ritual words and political reasoning. But the mountains taught me something different. Sacred things are not destroyed by force. They are distorted by it. And distortion creates imbalance. That imbalance does not disappear simply because a crowd witnessed it. It lingers. In the territory. In the pack. In the quiet moments when no one is watching. I stood on the northern ridge alone after the ceremony and realized something that frightened me more than the pain. I was still whole. The bond had ruptured. But I had not. And that is when I understood the truth. A mate bond is not your identity. It is not your strength. It is a connection between two strengths. If one tries to dominate the other, it collapses under its own weight. He believed leadership meant control. That if he could manage alliances, control territory, command warriors, he could also control something sacred. But sacred things do not respond to command. They respond to alignment. Stormridge felt the fracture because leadership and instinct had fallen out of balance. The pack grew restless not because they lacked orders, but because they sensed disconnection. An alpha's power is not just in his claws. It is in his spiritual steadiness. And when that steadiness cracks, everything beneath it trembles. The night he knelt was not about apology. It was about recalibration. It was the moment pride stepped aside long enough for understanding to enter. And understanding is heavier than dominance. Harder to maintain. More vulnerable. But far more powerful. The bond we carry now does not hum blindly. It does not overpower thought. It does not assume permanence. It breathes. It adjusts. It listens. It exists because we maintain it deliberately. Every decision. Every ritual. Every disagreement. That is what sacred means. Not untouchable, but respected. Stormridge stands stronger now not because nothing broke, but because something almost did. And we chose to repair it properly. There is a difference between surviving a fracture and learning from it. We learned. And that is why this bond endures. Not because it was destined, but because it is chosen. Again and again. Now, the story is complete. Some bonds are broken by pride. Some are tested by fear. And some survive because someone finally learns to kneel before what is sacred. Stormridge did not become stronger because nothing fractured. It became stronger because humility replaced control. And if you've ever watched something sacred almost break, you understand the cost of silence. If this story stayed with you tonight, subscribe and join this pack, because the next bond we explore might not be restored so easily. I'll see you in the next story.